Good morning, everyone. My name's Sedres, and I'm the Chief Transformation Officer for the Sanlam Group. My key role in the organization is to ensure that diversity, equity, and inclusion is embedded into the organization as it talks to every single stakeholder in the business itself. And one of the key stakeholders for our organization is the SME sector in particular, as it sits within our value chain. So today's topic is very close to my heart and our drive as a Sanlam Group. But I do have an esteemed panel that I'd like to invite on stage with me, whereupon I'll set the scene for why this is such a critical conversation. So I'd like to invite my panelists upstage. I'll start with Mbali Phewa. She is the Santam, Head of Transformation in Santam. Welcome, Mbali. I'd like to invite up Phewa Selo, the CEO of Sand Parks. I'd then like to invite up Keitumetse Lekaba, MD of I Am an Entrepreneur. And last but not least, the thorn among the roses is Ravi, Naidoo, the CEO of Youth Employment Services. So we heard this morning in the opening speech by the COO of Nedbank, and I was quite inspired by the thoughts that he shared with us this morning. Particularly, he talked about, those core things that drives empowerment. And he spoke about infrastructure development, he spoke about transport and logistics, and then he mentioned and he spoke about the third component, which was that the growth of the SMME sector. And I was quite excited because, this speaks exactly to the topic that we're going to be discussing here today with you. And what I found inspiring about that is that I think we all know that the SMME sector is said to be the sector that's going to drive our economic growth as a South Africa. We also know that that very sector, if it doesn't grow, it doesn't support us in reducing this unemployment rate that is ever increasing on a monthly basis even. And we heard the CEO mention 32% at the current rate. Our transformation gauge, the Sanlam transformation gauge, if any of you haven't read it, please do go and Google it, actually gives a very good view of the South African corporate state of transformation in the country for the past few years. And when I was reflecting on the 2023 report, I actually went to specifically look at those components that speaks to the SMME, and that is ESD and preferential procurement. And surprisingly for me, I don't know why I was surprised because I did see the report before, but surprisingly again when I looked at it, every single corporate was improving in the ESD agenda. They were all investing into enterprise and supply development. So then why do we still not see our SMME sectors growing? Why do we still not see the growth that we need to see in this country? Because that in itself is going to impact the unemployment issue that we faced as South Africa. And I suppose the big issue here is, which we all know, is that the translation of that ESD into preferential procurement opportunities being offered to these SMMEs is where we're just not bridging the gap. And so I welcome our panel today because I know that they have some really creative initiatives that they've started to do to try and bridge that gap. So we take you along on the journey with us, and we hope you find the feedback that we'll be providing you today inspiring. We will be staying around for the rest of the day, or at least some of us, so you're most welcome to just come and find us if you want to know a bit more about what we're doing. So I'll start off with my panel. Welcome once again, and thank you for making yourself available. Really do appreciate it. And when I invited my panel, I said to them that their stories were just too inspiring not to tell the world. And, what a better platform than 500 delegates here today, and I don't know how many are online. So I'll start off with my first question. Like it just stuck into asking you the questions. But before we can actually go into sharing your initiatives, I think perhaps each of you would like to just stand still and tell us a little bit about your business and the role of an SMME within your organization. I'm going to start off with Mbali.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you, Rayanne. So, Santam is a general insurer. We're a short-term insurer, and the relationship we have with SMEs is one of pure partnership. If you paid much attention in biology in high school, there's a concept called symbiosis, and we, I'd say we've perfected that mutualistic relationship with SMEs, where you'd struggle, or at least from a client perspective or client experience perspective, you'd struggle to distinguish the where we end off and where the SME picks up. A simple example, you've been in a car accident, immediately a tower arrives on scene. That's an SME. You take it into a panel beater, fourth SME. So one claim already, as you can see, to deliver on our brand promise, the good and proper insurance, there is that inextricable link between ourselves and SMEs.
Thank you, Mbali. Phewa, how does the SMME fit within your value chain as SANParks?
Good morning, Ray, and good morning to everyone. South African national parks, let me just give you a little bit of a background about South African national parks. We run 21 national parks across South Africa, and I think the ones that are best known are Kruger National Park, Table Mountain, Naidoo National Park, Tsitsikamma, just to give you a sense, in case you're wondering what we mean by national parks. Our mandate is to conserve the biodiversity of this country, so the fauna and the flora. And to do that, we run a very large tourism business. We manage about 15,000 beds across the network of national parks in 7 provinces. So just sketching that out to you indicates to you that we run a very significant entity, and that entity procures everything. It procures services, it procures commodities. What is also significant to note about our national parks is that the vast majority of them are in semi-rural areas and are therefore expected to be and play a very catalytic role in the socio-economic development of those areas in which they are located in. And for us, our dream, our vision, is to have the type of relationship that Santam has just related to us with regards to engaging with those SMME or SMMEs within our neighboring communities, having that symbiotic relationship. We're getting there. We haven't cracked it yet, but we're going to talk a bit further about that as the day unfolds. Thank you.
Thank you, Phewa. Keitumetse, the role that you play, how does SMMEs play a role in your business?
Thanks, Ray, and good morning, everybody. So my name is Keitumetse. I am the managing director of a company called I'm an Entrepreneur. So it's in the name, and the ethos is onefold. In our business, we help entrepreneurs build and grow their businesses, and we do this through various programs and initiatives, and we are quite intentional about also the impact. And hence, we often say we don't run incubators because by virtue of running an incubator, it means we have predetermined solutions for SMMEs. And for us, SMMEs become a critical partner in our business, as with every SMME that has gone past our programs, and I'm seeing a couple of faces, which is exciting me, they have gone through a needs analysis, which means we meet SMMEs at a point of their need. So we don't predetermine any program for an SMME. We have to have a needs analysis so that the impact can be through a very intentional developmental plan that we've done with these SMMEs. So we are in partnership with them because we also realize the critical importance of making sure that SMMEs are supported and supported right.
Thank you, Keitu. Ravi, last but not least, what's the role of an SMME in your business?
Yeah, thanks very much. So the Youth Employment Service, or YES, is finding young people with a potential and getting them their first jobs in the formal sector. So that's really our mission. There's lots of technical issues around how the program operates, but it's a public-private partnership, and it's done 152,000 12-month job, youth job internships, effectively, full-time, since it started a couple of years ago. And it's got 1,700 sponsoring companies, so it's 100% funded by the private sector in all sectors. So it's the biggest youth jobs pipeline with sort of the heavyweight job category, the 12-month full-time. And what we found, because we're looking for high potential youth from disadvantaged backgrounds, and we're getting them into the team being SA Inc. And because that's important to broaden the base of the economy, the tax base, but also to ensure that they will fuel the sectors, key sectors. So there's two ways in which the youth end at the program. One is they will be building their careers as employees, but we find that a lot of them are actually building themselves as entrepreneurs. Because you're finding actually young people with high potential, about 15% of all the youth in our program are setting up their own businesses. So last year, if we did 37,000 people who came to the program, 5,000 set up their own businesses. That's a deliberate byproduct. So in total, we discovered, do you know we have 20,000 entrepreneurs in our alumni? And that wasn't our main business. And now we work with partners, including Sanlam and a whole range of others, to say, how do we now support and co-fund these young people to go on and sort of kick ass in the economy? And that's really, how we've structured it, because in the end, the program fuels the economy.
Yeah. Absolutely. So, clearly what I'm hearing here is that SMMEs directly impact on your value chain. You actually cannot do business without an SMME. That being said, what is the biggest challenges for them to access supply chains? Not necessarily of your institutions, because I know you've got some good stories to talk about your own initiatives, but why is it that they're not able to access supply chain, access to procurement in many corporates? And you can pop like popcorn, or I can actually start with you, Keitumetse.
Yeah. Thanks, Ray. And that one is quite a critical one around access, because one of the biggest challenges that SMMEs have in this country and entrepreneurs have in this country is access to a supply chain. And what the world has now come, or how the world is evolving, and because of the agility of the world has become a global value chain, which means even within that, SMMEs are also no longer competing just with people around their own organizations or their own communities. You're also competing now on a global scale, which is making it harder and harder for them to access certain opportunities in the market. And obviously with that also comes our access to funding for SMMEs, which becomes a critical one, because it's very difficult to start and plan and budget with no money. And then it takes us to also a line that I like to use a lot. SMMEs don't know, and entrepreneurs don't know what they don't know. So the skills and the education that the ladies were speaking about this morning also become a very critical element in this world of entrepreneurship and SMMEs, and making sure that SMMEs are capacitated with the knowledge that they're supposed to know, so that they can start building the businesses that can actually have access. And over and above having access, they are competitive to be able to even get on the supply chain lists, which is a critical thing that SMMEs face in South Africa particularly.
Absolutely. Phewa?
Ray, I always say to my colleagues, Kruger National Park, just as an example, gets about 1.7 million tourists a year. And then I ask the question, how many tomatoes are eaten in 1 year in Kruger National Park? How many eggs are eaten? Where are they being bought? Because sometimes we think of SMME participation and we think in the most complex of terms. We're thinking construction, and sometimes we just need to take it down to the basics. But then how do we ensure that those tomatoes are sourced from within, let's say, a 50-kilometer radius, a 20-kilometer radius of the national park? And that's where now the funding comes. The access to funding that Keitumetse referred to, as well as capacitation, skills development, because people have got to be taught how to manage their businesses. You spoke about incubation, and I'm not one to dictate, but I'm saying to the private sector, where are you in partnering with us? We open our supply chain processes, by the way. And we have policies and processes that are very clear in terms of a very deliberate intervention to get services from SMMEs. But when you do that, and there's nobody out there to provide the tomatoes, as I said, and the eggs, because they don't have access to funding, we're back to square one. As you know, Ray, we have this amazing partnership with Sanlam, which is hardly a year old. So let me just educate the audience, shall I?
Please tell them about this amazing
because it speaks to the innovation of when the public sector and the private sector create partnerships for the good of the country. Sanlam provides an SMME development fund to South African national parks at 10. So we started out with 10 million, and we piloted this at the Kruger National Park. That 10 million fund provides loans to SMMEs that South African National Parks has procured services to, or from rather, and it's an interest-free loan. We launched it in October last year. To date, that fund has disbursed over 7 million in loans and has allowed 23 people, 23 entrepreneurs who wouldn't have had access to working capital to provide services to South African national parks. I must just also indicate we work with I'm an Entrepreneur. So we're working with very bright, innovative people in this project. So we're talking here 23 people who, under normal circumstances, without this intervention, would not have been able to provide the services to South African national parks. And I need to indicate that over half of them are youth and the rest are women. So this is very critical for me to note. And we do thank Sanlam and I'm an Entrepreneur. And to the private sector, the people who are sitting here, other entities, we're saying we're seeking these innovative solutions. Our heart is in the right place. We're walking the talk. But these SMMEs need your support. Let us partner.
Thank you, Phewa. I think what Phewa is neglecting to note as well is that SANParks is actually ring-fenced purchasing orders to those SMMEs. And where it comes undone is that they're not able to honor that procurement because they don't have that working capital. So all Sanlam's done is provided upfront working capital, and the beauty of that funding is that it gets repurposed all the time. So once they pay back their loan, once they get paid by SANParks, they pay back the loan goes back into the fund, the next SMME. In fact, they can reapply for a loan as well, depending on the purchasing order. So I think that also talks to the solutions of how you're able to provide a creative way of accessing the supply chain of big corporates is when you have a different way of thinking. And I want to thank you for allowing us the opportunity to work with you. So maybe we can talk to another program of ours, and Ravi, I'll look to you to talk to specifically the Youth for Tourism and how that's connected into creating access to markets for these youth.
Yeah, no, thanks. So yes, in general, is on the demand side. You can have a supply side and the demand side. So because it's a program funded and led by corporates. And originally it was all the big corporates. The CEO initiative was the 150, mostly bigger brands. And now it's 1,700, as I mentioned. It means we have a lot of access to the buying side. So even for SMEs, we talk about supply chain opportunities. When we sit with our corporate partners, we realize they all have supply chain opportunities. They are looking for new suppliers for ESG reasons and so on, or just for business reasons. They want to localize more because being dependent on foreign imports is not always a great thing in some sectors. And because we are generating just naturally such a large number of young entrepreneurs, we are in a good position. We've got the supply of young entrepreneurs and then big corporates looking for new suppliers. So that's where we look around this room and say, are there any good SME programs and partners who will work with us to use opportunities? So we're in a very good position. We're almost like an SME opportunities platform. Now, coming to the point which you have raised, is we are evolving our youth jobs programs into youth entrepreneurship opportunity programs. So I will now use the opportunity to name drop Sanlam as well. So what we found is Sanlam was quite catalytic as a contributor in the program. And when they joined the program a couple of years ago, they wanted to come in for a special sector because we are looking at how to deepen impact. Because we have youth jobs, but it's more impactful if the youth jobs are going to sectors that are at the empowering edge of the economy. So tourism, is very important for, it's an export for the country. We generate so much money in South Africa, but also it's a sector, once everything is moving, there's jobs in accommodation, transport, restaurants, all those things. But there's certain bottlenecks. We don't have enough people doing the search engine optimization. We don't have enough people flying the drones to take pictures of areas. We don't have enough up-and-coming chefs. And so then with Sanlam, we targeted last year in Program 1, jobs going into certain key, like tourism convention bureaus, which went well. So Sanlam put in the first a bit of money, and we called it the Youth for Tourism Program, Y4T. And what we're able to do, if some company gives us money, we can 5x it. So then Sanlam joined, and then Sanlam led it, and then 20 other companies joined. Sanlam sponsored the first 200 jobs. By the end of the year, we had 1,100 jobs sponsored for key components of the industry. And it's gone well. So year 2, we thought, let's take some of these top chefs and drone pilots and so on, who are well set to run their own business. Let's create a entrepreneurship funding program. So this year we are funding 50 small businesses in tourism, but drawing mainly on the alumni, the top performers from last year. So I think that's how we can evolve it, and I think it's a good case study in a way of how a corporate, Paul Hanratty was quite keen, the CEO of Sanlam himself, and with you, Rayan, to sort of give leadership in a sector which was key. But the same thing could be done in, youth for water infrastructure, youth for green hydrogen, and so where would be the new young entrepreneurs that can come through? But you have to find a way to evolve it naturally so it's sustainable. And I think because a lot of these youth have already proven their, sort of earned their stripes in Program 1, it makes it lower risk for us now to take it forward.
Do you want to talk about some of the other partners that have come along to enhance that program as well, Ravi?
Yeah, so in the tourism program. So after Sanlam, we brought together partners to, let's say, host youth. So we said, all right, where would be key places where they have to expand their capacity to bring in more youth? So we worked, for example, with the Cape Town Convention Center to boost their tourism convention bureau to run particular events. The Western Cape was very keen. And they then, on the back of the program, because now we are now running the biggest drone pilot program in the country, where young people come in, previously unemployed. Everybody in the family is unemployed. At the end of the program, the woman is a drone pilot's license, and she's supporting, let's say, safety and security, or search and rescue in Cape Town. Fantastic. They need that for example, tourism. So we found, obviously, a lot of the companies adjacent to tourism, like the hotel groups and so on, but also other companies get involved. Because, so, for example, Ford got involved, and they were like, no, they would love to come in and support the program. Mercedes-Benz, good brand to have for tourism. So because they also want to contribute extra capacity to the program. So it's a range. We've even had Microsoft come in and say, well, everyone in the program can get artificial intelligence training for different sectors that they go in. So we let all the participants, but it has to be based around the nucleus of who is the lead partner. So that was initially played by Sanlam. Okay. And in the office, when we look at other sectors, we say, we're looking for a Sanlam. And what they mean is they're looking for a company to take the lead in this particular sector, because it's been quite a good case study.
I see you also got some of the youth in the room, Ravi, taking some pictures and videos as well. I think I saw some of the youth here, in fact.
And you're so on the ball. Exactly. So our youth, our YCC team, and raise their hands.
Let me stand up.
So these guys do the photography and the filming and stuff for us. Also came through the program. And I can just say we had a lot of their stuff displayed at the slow lounges at the airport.
Wow.
And if you didn't say these were young people earning their stripes, you'll think these are, it's like Kentridge installations going on here. Very, very, very beautiful stuff. And we had a wonderful exhibition in Cape Town as well. I think you were there. Absolutely. But people were really amazed. And they're all like CEOs of big corporates, and they were like, are these the things you're talking about? I said, yeah, that's the thing. But they really thought it was, they had no idea. This is coming from youth programs. Yeah. But if you just blank out the names, you would think that was very established people. So I think there's a huge amount of potential. And as the economy starts to grow, we can see a lot of spaces are going to open up for people to make an impact.
Thank you, Ravi. I'm conscious of time, and I want to give our two ladies, Mbali and Keitu, also the opportunity of just sharing a little bit about some of your programs. And Mbali, I know Keitu, I know you've got you've got other clients as well that you do similar programs. So perhaps you just want to stand still on one or two that you think is relevant to this topic?
Yeah, I think this one, quite relevant to it and quite exciting. Last year we had an idea, because we work with a lot of corporates within our entity. We're always thinking about ways of bringing the corporates together, because in our space we believe that development can't be competition. Corporates need to come together so that the pie can be bigger and we can do more as a collective. So we developed and implemented a program called Access to Market Bootcamp. And at this bootcamp we said, if we have 5 corporates that we already are working with come together in a setting where they can come and speak to entrepreneurs and give entrepreneurs the opportunity to know what is happening within their own supply chain. And initially we did this with Coca-Cola Beverages South Africa, where they sponsored it, because also corporates have a similar challenge of entrepreneurs. Once they get into the supply chain, they have a concentration risk, and they only stick to that one big corporate. So then it becomes difficult for them to move on or go look for other business with other corporates. So then we developed this Access to Market Bootcamp, sponsored by Coke, where we then brought in our other corporate clients, Sasol, Exaro, even Cummins, where they then came and gave entrepreneurs a very clear and realistic picture of what the supply chain opportunities were and what they were looking for. Because often when entrepreneurs complain or go to the corporates and say, I've never gotten an opportunity or whatever it is, then the corporate, so in that bootcamp we have honest conversations around, even like a Coca-Cola would say, guys, our list for marketing opportunities, we're already inundated with that list. This is where the opportunity within our supply chain, particularly for entrepreneurs within the countries are. So that also as an entrepreneur, you can also go and look at how you can pivot into where the opportunities are. And I think Ravi touched on it a little bit around, once you have the other side of it, and once you know the opportunity, you can also capacitate yourself to be able to take upon that opportunity. And then you can also see that, and what the corporates were very good at doing as well, is giving the entrepreneurs in the room access to when the opportunities are coming out. And just realistically around this, in this type of month, these are all the opportunities coming out. In this month, these are the opportunities coming out. And also being clear around where are the non-negotiables when you come and want to be part of our supply chains, because from a compliance perspective, there are certain non-negotiables that even when you don't have those things, it's difficult to add an entrepreneur on their supply chain. So then we have honest conversations about that. And then what we also do there is start to partner with other business development practitioners. So we'll call in at the summit and at the bootcamp, a SARS to come in, a CIPC to come in, one funder to come in, so that entrepreneurs can get a holistic approach and a holistic help from various corporates and also business development support. So that program, I think, for us is one of the things from an innovative and making sure that we're meeting entrepreneurs at the point of their need is quite an exciting program that we're running over and above the PO funding that we're doing with Sanlam and Sandparks, which has become quite a poster funding activity for us, particularly because of its interest-free nature. Because, sometimes interest can trip, in the words of the youngsters, it really can trip up cash flows for SMMEs. So that funding project also for us, particularly where corporates can come to us and say, it's fine, you can actually use the funds that we have to give entrepreneurs and SMMEs interest-free funding. It becomes a game changer.
Thank you, Keitu. Thanks a lot. So I think we've run out of time, but I actually want to start with Mbali by, what would you like to leave the audience with here today? Listening to everything that's been said, knowing your business, and also knowing, understanding the need for access to market. What would you like to leave our audience with?
Yeah.
What
Thanks,
take
Rhea.
out?
So I think there are two things. When embarking on an ESG program or defining your preferential procurement, what is your departure point? Are you looking to tick a box and comply and get your BE rating, or are you actually looking to contribute to a competitive, a thriving, a sustainable SMME sector? So that defines everything you do going forward. And then I think that there's a lot that's been said around partnerships, and I like what you said, Keitumetse, around development not being a competitive sport. We've seen, and it's a very basic concept, where when you were little kids, you have your 2 rand, I have my 1 rand, she brings in her 5 rand, siyagazata. You pull it all together, and you get more. You can stretch that bit of funding further by collaborating and identifying those who have almost a mutual objective to you. So instead of getting a little sweet, now all of a sudden we have a hot dog. So those sorts of, or that sort of thinking has yielded the greatest results, certainly for us, where we have sought out partners who have the same ambition or who have an aligned ambition to ourselves. And where we stop, they're able to pick up. It's almost a relay race, and we can stretch any program a little further to ensure absolute impact.
Concur with you fully, Mbali. Phewa, last thoughts for the audience?
Thank you, Ray. For me, we need to just wake up to the fact that with being a country that has one of the highest unemployment rates in the world, we're sitting on a tinderbox, and we need to do something about it. It is imperative that we do something about it. The fact that I read some research a while ago that South Africa has got one of the highest rates of failure for startups says something. And another statistic I've come across is that almost 70% of new businesses fail in South Africa within the first 2 years. It says to me the environment is not enabling enough for the sustainability of small business. And we need to reflect and introspect about how both the private sector and the public sector can lend a hand, can partner, as I have said. And I like this, Keitumetse. It's not a competitive sport. we can all pull together, because the crisis faces us collectively and equally. We have to find the solutions.
Thank you.
in
Thank you
rooms
so
such
much.
as this. Yeah.
One word, Keitumetse, what would you want to leave with?
For me, someone said it earlier on, sentiment is one thing, but action is another. So together we need to make sure that we can action. And I think my last point is also, particularly from a corporate side, when we are doing these ESD programs and when we are helping SMMEs, you won't see impact in 6 months, you won't see impact in a year. So we have to be very careful around what is monitoring and evaluation versus impact. So that's my last word.
Thank you. One word, Ravi. I'm seeing the red
If
flag
I
here,
can
and
put the
Leanne
two
is
words
starting to get
together,
up.
there can be one. I would say we need supportive infrastructure to take advantage of these opportunities. I think there's a lot of opportunities.
I think my panel has said it all. I'm taking out collaboration, partnerships, not a competition. We all can work together. Let's pool all our funds and let's singularly focus on things that can make impact. Thank you, panelists, and thank you, Top Empowerment, for the opportunity.